Now Cook, when he sailed, I'll just zoom out and show you what it is before we do it. You see the little line starting to disappear. So you really have to go into the full magnification to see it. And across the heads to this point here, I'll zoom in again, there's a forward point. See the line starting to form. So what we're going to do is zoom out a little bit. We're going to zoom in on this one. You see the lines start to form. So we're going to go and make a line and measure. And the point at this I've got to find it now. This is a property at 7 Trevone Street, Padstow. Now 174 is Thorns. And what I want to show you is this is a property that I inherited from my parents. My father, just before he died, was trying to cut me out the will because he was an evil bastard. But as it turned out, it didn't matter. This gave me the money to go to New Guinea with Janelle and cure well over 30-odd thousand people now. And of course, I'd like to say that PayPal has now cut off my account, so anyone who's been sending money for magnets has now put me in a very difficult position because you can't get the money out of PayPal. So all of you people have to start withdrawing your money back from PayPal. They've got to give it back to you. But they're stopping me from doing it. And also I've got calcium chlorite, hydrochlorite, which will cure all known diseases in one pill. It was invented or discovered by Jim Humble, and they're stopping that because I've ordered pills, capsules from New Guinea, for New Guinea from China, and they've put a stop on that by the looks of it, so I'll lose the money there as well. So we're going to go back to, and you'll see that the line is pointing between the two heads, is pointing towards, there's a line there, it's pointing towards the house. So I've just left it off to one side a little bit so you can see it. I'll just slightly zoom out. So we'll do it again. We go from Padstow, that's the house there. And this time we'll go across the line exactly. There it is there, you can see how it lines up. And there it is. So it's showing you miracle after miracle after miracle. Now what happened was these swords, white swords, were along the coast. So here's the largest harbour on earth, and Cook doesn't sail into it. The reason he didn't sail into it because he couldn't bloody well sail into it. It was stopped. The only place you could get into was Botany Bay. Now that'd be the worst place in the world to go and find fresh water, because that's what the idea was, to find fresh water. All the way up the coast there's sword lines across where he couldn't get in, so it's another miracle. Now when Cook was sailing from Antarctica back up to New Zealand, New Zealand had been discovered 127 years earlier, so they knew all about it, and they had with them the Harrison clock. The Harrison clock was, my grandmother is Mary Harrison. Harrison clock was developed by John Harrison over a 50-year period, and it was very, very accurate for measuring longitude. So once the British Admiralty had a longitude clock, they could then measure accurately Tahiti and the islands, and in particular New Zealand. And he discovered New Zealand to be 888 miles between latitudes. He was there for nearly 6 months. He arrived on the 10th of October 1769, then sailed across to Australia and couldn't get into any of these huge ports like Jervis Bay, some monstrous places where the Navy is today. Couldn't get in there. Sailed up the coast, and here's a man that measured New Zealand for 6 months, and the maps are still in use today. So what that means is that this great explorer, as they say, he wasn't a captain, he was a lieutenant. He had followed the sails of the Dolphin, the SS Dolphin, which is Captain Wallis, who discovered Tahiti, which is 5,000 miles from the South Pole. And the reason for that is the 50th latitude layer of masonry on the Great Pyramid is the King's Chamber, which has got my birth details in it when I would be to return to the Earth. And of course they were worried that the transition of Venus across the face of the Sun, which was what his job was to view it with all these astronomers and mathematicians that he had with him. He even had Mr. Green, who was head of the Greenwich Meantime Observatory in England, in London. That's where all time was based on, Greenwich. And he was then sent with orders to discover an alternative to Australia, because Australia's Ephraim. This is what the satanic cults are all about. They wanted America to be Ephraim and England to be Joseph. And why? Joseph had married the daughter of the high priest of On, O-W-N, or On, in Egypt, where the god of the underworld. So the daughters of the high priest became the mother of the daughter of the high priest became the mother of the two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Of course, these were to become nations as per prophecy of Jacob, who was the father, Jacob Israel. He passed on the inheritance. But they was worried because now Australia had been discovered, and it meant that Christ must return to Australia. So this points out where the sword is, the house that my parents had left me in their will. My mother, a good woman, she wanted to leave me the house, and my father, who was a mongrel, satanic bastard, tried to cut me out at the very last minute. I couldn't have cared less one way or the other. But that money was used to take the cure up into New Guinea, otherwise we couldn't have done it. So what we have then is from Padstow in Australia to Padstow, England, on the same road, Trebone Road, Padstow in England, the distance is 1077.2.6 miles, and that is the diagonal of the Great Pyramid in its fullness, in feet, 1077.26 feet. And it's also the difference in days between Charles I, who was beheaded for Christ, for the love of Christ. The Jews had done that under Cornwall, and Freemasonry, of course. And his father, or he had, kicked out the Jews who had taken over the treasury in England and ran England for 11 years, and finally he was beheaded as being a tyrant. All trumped up charges, of course. His grandmother was also beheaded, that was Mary Queen of Scots. So we've got James, who put the Bible together, or actually signed it. I shouldn't say he put it together, he signed it into authority. He and William Shakespeare, his real name was Edward de Vere, had altered it over an 18-month period after being given a manuscript by the head Freemason, Francis Bacon, and put in these codes. So the King James Bible is a Freemason work with Lucifer cult written all over it, but they had 18 months and these two brilliant minds to put in the numbers and manoeuvre, change, this and that. And this is where Isaiah 63 is so important, because when we get back to Harcourt Parade, to Harcourt, that is where it is revealed to the small flock that I'm giving the kingdom to, because that's all it is.